Hi, today's Sunday, the day before the race. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. Just doing a couple mile shakeout around here from the hotel. Got in pretty late last night, around 11:30 or so, and just slept in a little bit. But I can't usually sleep in much past 6:30, so was up a bit earlier than I wanted, but that's okay. Yeah, I usually do about 4 miles as a shakeout before. But then I also kind of go to bed and check my step count, and it's usually like over 20,000 steps. And I'm not trying to get anywhere near that many steps. So I decided to do a couple miles less than usual. And just try to keep things a little bit more moderate. You know, when you come in essentially the day before, I've got to get my stuff from the Expo today. And usually that represents a whole bunch of, you know, walking around, and I have to get to a bunch of different places. So, you know, I usually can't help but doing at least 10,000 steps. So my legs are usually a little bit shot at the end of the day before, before marathon, and I don't want them to be. So I figure I'd cut my shakeout run in half here. Yeah, I'll probably just grab a bit of breakfast here and then head over to the Expo after this. Definitely still having some issues with my left leg. I've been able to put in the workouts despite the issue, but it is a little bit of an odd feeling. I've got like some collapsing that happens if I sort of change the position of my pelvis. So my left leg, sort of unexpectedly collapses on me, and I want to sort of lose strength. So I'm pretty sure it's a bit of a nerve issue. I don't know if you followed at the start of this series. I talked about having, some issues in my glutes, and I was having some pinched nerves. So I'm not, likely the same issue, just kind of showing up in my glutes and my quads. It's not really any pain. It's just sort of the leg gives out a little bit on my left leg, which is kind of crazy. I've got some pretty strong legs, and then even just like doing something like a one-legged squat, I can't seem to do it really well, and it just sort of unaccountably collapses on me. But if I sort of keep my hips tucked, it doesn't seem to happen. I was able to do that 13 miler at that marathon pace, without that issue coming up. And so hopefully I can keep that going for the whole 26, and feeling pretty decent about my fitness. Obviously last summer with the hamstring issues I was having, but that's okay. I'll probably discuss here a little bit in a sec about the changes to my race goals. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be going for that 226, but I still think, I can run a great race, and I'm still, sort of definitely gonna go for it. Just not quite what I thought maybe I could do at the beginning of the training block, and that's pretty normal, right? I mean, you can't be too stubborn with your goals. When as you get more information, you get close to race day. If you still go for the same goal despite having new information about your fitness, then I think that's just kind of silly, and you're kind of setting yourself up to be disappointed. And not just that, but just setting yourself up to go too fast which, you know, will just compound the matter. So anyways, I'll get into a little bit more details on, you know, exactly what the plan is and what my goal is, and in a little bit. All right, it's 12:30 or so on Sunday. Just going into the convention center to grab my kit, my race number and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. Sometimes they make you walk a couple miles just to get your race number. So we'll see. It doesn't seem too crowded right now, so that's good. Yeah, I remember last year having to walk through this entire maze. And so I'm not sure if I just picked a better time to come, but I don't have to do it this year. It looks like I can just go around. That's kind of nice. Thank you. You gotta remember.
I know. All right. See you. Have a great race.
Thanks very much.
Is the Expo?
I just got my number, number 313. That's the Detroit area code, so that's an easy one to remember for me. Looks like we got the yellow shirts this year, full. Yeah, nice stuff. Kind of matches the same color as the one I have from, I'm not sure if you can tell, but this is from 2002, so that's a 23-year-old Boston Marathon shirt. I ran it when I was kind of fresh out of college with some friends, and just kind of went out there and had some fun. But that's kind of part of what got me addicted to running Boston. I had such an awesome experience there, and you know, I always love coming back to do it again. I think this is number 6 for me. Although I think that one's so old it doesn't show up on the VAA digital records. You know, that was kind of right after the birth of the internet, so the VAA records don't seem to go back that far, at least on their website. Yeah, actually, that was cool. I got to run that one in the elite field as well. Probably, you know, not too many folks get to run Boston as their first marathon, so that was a cool experience way back when. Just, you know, I was pretty fast 10K runner, so they just used my 29:04 10K time to give me a bye into the elite field. Lots to do and see here, but I think I'm gonna head out and just enjoy the weather outside a little bit, and then gonna just go back, put my feet up for a bit. I'm not sure what the difference was between this year and last year, but I got in and out of there a lot faster. Last year we had to go through a whole bunch of crowd management to get the bed pickups. And this year it was pretty minimal, so it was a lot less painful than I remember. It's about 200 to go from the finish here, so I'm curious how things will be tomorrow at this time, or at this place on the course. All right, lots of excitement here. Can't wait till tomorrow at this time. See, there's 20 hours to go.
Are you part of director or
Hey, this is the finish here. I'm looking forward to getting here tomorrow. Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I am going to readjust some of my goals. I know going into this training block, the goal was to go 225 something, but just kind of the way things went, it's probably not realistic anymore. And just kind of want to go into this with, with the best chance of having a good race and enjoying the day. And and still running well. So I'm not certainly not giving up on things, but I think realistically I'm probably I think best case scenario is probably going to be sub 228. So that's kind of my A goal going into tomorrow's race. I'm going to pace myself through the half to run 227.59. It'd be really nice to to get a 227 handle on there. And then, probably my B goal would be to go under 230. C goal would be to go under 236. And then as always, the D goal is to finish. And I think that's an important goal. I always, I don't like, going into these races with the mentality that if things aren't going well, I'll just drop out. So, the plan's always to finish. But I don't think it's typically hasn't come to that. I know, things can happen. And quite often some people do need to walk their way in. So I'd rather do that than grab a bus. I want to get across that finish line. You just never know how many times you're gonna get to do this. I have no idea what what next year brings or whatever. So, to be in the position to be able to be here and to make the trip is something I'm really thankful for, and so I will enjoy the experience tomorrow, no matter what happens. So that kind of brings me to some of my process goals, and so the outcome goal is to go sub 228, but the process goal is got a few things that I usually like to set myself up for success and set myself up to enjoy the day. First one is just in the morning, just to be warm all day. And I see so many people in Athlete Village wearing like shorts and a singlet, and they look like they're freezing. And I hope you're not doing that if you're running. I prefer to be super warm, and usually even potentially even have some extra stuff that I'm just too warm that I need to take some stuff off. It can be a long time outside, and you're kind of exposed a lot of the time. And so I typically, I wear a lot of layers, and and for Boston specifically, most of that has to be throwaway stuff. And so I typically don't throw away a lot of clothes throughout the year as they sort of get gross. I save them to run Boston, and so like everybody else, you kind of show up to the start line and you kind of look like, you're not exactly looking too stylish. At least most people aren't. So and that's all. I'll be kind of fitting in. I got a nice pair of old sweatpants with a wool cardigan to go over the top. But it'll keep me warm, and that's one of the first goals is to be warm. The other one is to take my gels, to follow my energy plan. I try to keep it pretty simple, and I'm just going to do a gel every 5K. And that should get me around 70 grams of carbs per hour, assuming I don't, assuming my pace doesn't really deteriorate at any point. I'll probably be going through the 5K between like 17 and 18 minutes. And so, every 20 minutes for the gels I take have 25 grams. So that would be about 75 grams of carbs per hour, which is kind of right in the sweet spot between the kind of the general recommendations for carb intake is to be somewhere between 60 and 90 grams. Typically, the faster you are, the more you want to err on the high side. If you're on the slower side and you're not accustomed to taking that kind of, those kind of carbs, and you'd want to err more on the slow side. So that kind of puts me right in the sweet spot. If I factor in a little bit of the energy drink that I'll take on the course, then I'll probably get closer to 85 grams per hour or so. But this gives me the flexibility to either take water or energy drink. And that way I can sort of just adjust how much my fluid intake based on my thirst and trying to get down the energy drinks. So yeah, second goal is to hit that, even late in the race. And for, in some of my earlier marathons where I think I dropped the ball was I felt pretty crummy. And so I didn't feel like I wanted to take any energy gels after like 25, 30K. And I think that was a big mistake. I think you want to continue to take those gels even when you're not feeling too hot. So I set a goal going into this is I'm gonna take my gels every 5K. There's timers at the 5K mark, so it's kind of a good a good cue to remind me to take them. I'll check my 5K split, and then after I've checked my 5K split, then I'll just take a gel. I'm going to start the race with 5 gels. I typically take one right at the start, maybe a quarter mile into the race, and so I'll start the race with 5, and I'll I should be able to pick one up or multiple up at the first aid station. And in theory, if I miss that first aid station, which I have done before, then I would have an extra one in my pocket, and I would only have to go like maybe an extra 3 or 4K without my gel, and then I would just kind of switch over to the energy drink on the course for that little bit until the next next station that has the gels. But I do need to start with 5, and that gives me just a little bit of a buffer. Yeah. So after that, I'll probably stuff 2 of my pockets, just to have. I always feel like it's nice to have one extra one in there just in case you do forget to pick it up. But after that first stop, there's 2 more throughout the race after that, so you've got some time to pick some up. So yeah, the next goal is I always to have fun. I always like to give a few high fives out there. Yeah, there's always lots of kids out in the course, especially early in the race. They're standing out in the weather, and most of the elites and whatnot aren't handing out high fives and that kind of stuff. And so typically it's kind of cool where I get to be on the course, where typically a lot of the people in front of me are probably taking it, maybe even they tend to take it a little bit more seriously. And not that you can't take it seriously and give high fives, but I always get a lot of cool reactions from the kids out there by running along and giving some high fives. And it's it's probably more than anything, it's fun for me, and it's good to feel some of the energy from the crowd. Related to energy, I also don't want to get sucked up in the excitement too much. So one of my other goals, the third goal, is to run slower than 5:30 for the first mile. That first mile can be tough to contain yourself. There's just so much excitement, and it's a downhill mile. And so in the past, I've kind of scorched that first mile, which doesn't really hurt to do it, but it's not advisable. It does kind of spike my heart rate a little bit, and there's probably no benefit to do that. So yeah, the whole goal there is to run slower than 5:30 for that first mile. And I guess on that same note, to go through the half between 113 and 115. So I mentioned I'm shooting for, approximately 228. First half of the race is a bit faster than the second half. But it'd be great to actually negative split for once. I don't do that very often. So I really want to hit that 114. I definitely don't want to go faster than 113. Occasionally I'll adjust things to if I find a good pack that I'm running with, and if I get sort of pulled along, um, sometimes I get caught up running a little bit faster than I want to, but I do want to have the restraints to let that pack go, or if something like that happens, and just sort of stick with, largely stick with my plan and run about a 114. I'm not planning on hitting that exactly because I do want to run with other folks, and um, kind of get out of the wind. It looks like tomorrow is going to be, the wind forecast is pretty light, but for what wind there will be, it looks like it'll be coming from the east, so it'll be a bit of a headwind when the gusts do pick up. So not looking to be running on my own the whole time. It'd be nice to have a good pack to run with. The fourth goal is to just really enjoy the Scream Tunnel. That's always one of my favorite parts of any race is the Wellesley Scream Tunnel. So to enjoy that, but also not to show off through that race, and not to pop in a 520 mile. I've done that before, where you just you get so excited, and the Scream Tunnel pumps you up so much, and I end up running quite a bit faster than I really want to. So I don't want to do that. I want to be able to just enjoy the experience, but not get carried away trying to run super fast through that section. It's still a long ways from the finish. And then lastly, just to enjoy, the last couple miles. It's pretty special part of the course, and there's so many people lined up coming through. Like the Fenway Park area is just amazing, and then obviously the last half mile or so is just insanity, and so I want to enjoy that, and it's gonna be physically miserable. I know it will be. Every marathon that I've ever raced is that way. It's gonna be super tough, but it's still just to be able to enjoy that, and to appreciate all the people on the course, and this great event that I get to be part of. So yeah, so those are the process goals. I mentioned my outcome goal is to run 228. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of getting down to crunch time. Tomorrow at this time, whatever happens, my legs will be shot and I'll be exhausted. I sure hope it turns out to be a fast day, but I think either way, I'll enjoy the experience, and just be super thankful that I get to do this, and I get to run such an awesome event. Thanks a lot for following. I know a lot of you sort of tagged along for the last 16 weeks, and since I started this whole training block, and so I really appreciate the support and the well wishes I've received. I know I kind of dropped the ball, over the last week or so. I had actually had some computer malfunctions where I had some literal smoke coming from my computer, and so a lot of the files I had are on that machine, and even just the ability to process them is I'm trying to do it off of a much slower laptop that we had kicking around. But the good part about that is I can do that in my hotel room, and don't have to wait to get back to my home in Michigan to run those on my desktop. So, anyways, just kind of brief explanation of why I just haven't had the content coming out the last few weeks. So anyways, yeah, thanks. I appreciate the support.